Part 3. No More Silence. The meeting took place in a private conference room above an old restaurant in Buckhead. Neutral ground, Kung had called it. Lynn thought the phrase sounded polite for a room chosen because neither man trusted the other. Daniel entered first and checked the adjoining office, the service corridor, and the windows overlooking the street. Kung followed with Lynn beside him. Dennis Brooks was already waiting. He stood near the head of the table in a charcoal suit, one hand resting beside an unopened bottle of water. He appeared to be in his late 50s, with closely trimmed gray hair and a face that revealed little. Two men waited near the wall behind him. Security. Daniel glanced at them once. Outside. One of the men stiffened. Dennis lifted a hand. "Do as he says." They left without argument. Dennis looked at Lynn. "Dr. Smith, you know who I am. I know why we're here." "That wasn't my question." Kung pulled out a chair for her. Lynn remained standing. Dennis studied her for a moment. "You're William Smith's daughter. Louise is your stepmother. Denise and Deborah are her daughters. And you're their uncle." "Yes. The owner of the company whose vehicle was used to follow my children." Dennis's jaw tightened. "One of the owners." "That distinction doesn't matter to me." "No," he said. "I imagine it doesn't." Kung took the chair beside Lynn, but did not remove his coat. Dennis looked between them. "I expected you to come alone, Min Young." "You requested a meeting about crimes committed against Dr. Smith." "I requested a private meeting." "This is private." "I meant without her." Lynn finally sat. "Then you misunderstood who needed the answers." Dennis held her gaze. Something in his expression shifted. Not irritation, reassessment. He took the chair at the other end of the table. "I did." Daniel placed a folder in front of Dennis. Inside were photographs of the dark SUV near the children's school, the abandoned utility truck, the gray sedan recovered after the highway attack, and the surveillance picture left inside Lynn's townhouse. Dennis moved through them slowly. When he reached the school photographs, his composure cracked. 3 images: Will outside the middle school, David and Michaela near the elementary entrance, Michaela on the playground with Mr. Buttons tucked beneath her arm. Dennis stared at the last one. "Who took these?" "That is what we intend to determine," Kung said. Dennis looked at Lynn. "These were sent to you?" "Left inside my home after someone broke in." "And the sedan?" "Someone used it to push my children and me toward a concrete barrier." Dennis leaned back. "You believe my company was involved?" "One of your vehicles was involved," Lynn said. "Peachtree Medical Logistics is also connected to your company through its law firm." "That does not mean I authorized any of this." "I didn't say you did." "You thought it." "I considered it." Dennis glanced toward Kung. "And now?" Kung folded his hands on the table. "I have competed with you for 12 years. You are aggressive, disciplined, and unpleasant when challenged." Dennis's mouth moved slightly. "I could say the same about you." "You have. Several times. But you do not conduct personal surveillance using a vehicle registered to your own company." "No. You would consider that careless." "I would consider it stupid." Lynn watched the exchange. There was no warmth between the two men, but there was familiarity. Each understood how the other operated. Kung continued, "That is why we are here instead of speaking to the police first." Dennis closed the folder. "What do you want from me?" "The truth," Lynn said. Dennis opened his briefcase and removed a tablet. "At 6:30 this morning, our risk management office received a request from the Atlanta Police Department regarding a black company SUV." He placed the tablet on the table. "The vehicle is assigned to our executive transportation pool. It was reported unavailable for maintenance 8 days ago." "By whom?" Daniel asked. "The fleet supervisor." "Was it under maintenance?" "No." Dennis touched the screen. "The work order was created electronically. No mechanic received the vehicle. No service appointment existed." "Who created the order?" Lynn asked. "The system lists an administrative account." "A shared account?" Kung asked. "Yes." "So it tells us nothing." "Not by itself." Dennis opened another file. but every company vehicle leaves our secured garage through a gate controlled by employee credentials. A still image appeared on the screen. The black SUV passed through the garage exit shortly after 9 at night. The windows were too dark to reveal the driver. Dennis enlarged the access record beneath it. The credential belonged to Denise Brooks. Lynn stared at the name. When? The night before your children were photographed. And when did the SUV return? 3 days later. Who brought it back? We don't know. The rear gate opened from inside the vehicle using a programmed transmitter. Daniel stepped closer. Was the GPS active? Disabled 6 minutes after it left the garage. Who could disable it? Fleet management, security, certain senior executives. And Denise? Lynn asked. Dennis hesitated. She is vice president of community relations. That wasn't the question. She has executive-level access. Silence filled the room. Lynn sat back. Why would someone working in community relations need access to vehicle tracking? She shouldn't. Yet she had it. Dennis's eyes hardened. She had credentials that allowed it. That does not prove she was driving. It proves her credentials released the vehicle. They may have been stolen. Were they? I don't know. Have you asked her? No. Why not? Because I called Kung before I called Denise. Lynn studied him. That was smart. I didn't build a multinational corporation by confronting people before I understood what they had done. No, you built it by controlling information. Dennis looked at her. That too. Kung placed a copy of Peachtree Medical Logistics corporate filings on the table. Why is your law firm connected to this company? Dennis read the first page. I've never heard of it. The registered agent works for Brooks Pharmaceutical. I employ more than 12,000 people. The company submitted 2 purchase offers for William Smith's property. Dennis's expression darkened. That land again. You knew about it, Lynn said. I knew Louise wanted it sold. Why? Because the rezoning increased its value. And because my father left it to me. Dennis looked at her carefully. I told Louise to leave that alone. When? 6 weeks ago. She came to my office with Denise and asked whether Brooks Pharmaceutical would acquire the property. What did you say? That we had no need for it. Was that true? Dennis glanced at Kung before answering. The location would be useful. It sits between 2 parcels scheduled for medical development. Lynn felt her stomach tighten. So you did want it. I said it would be useful. That is not the same thing as needing it. $4.8 million says someone needed it. We spend more than that renovating office space. His voice remained controlled. I told Louise that William's property was his to keep, sell, or leave to whomever he chose. And Denise? She argued that the land should remain with Louise's family. It was never Louise's land. I reminded her of that. Lynn leaned forward. How did she respond? She stopped arguing. That doesn't mean she accepted it. No. Dennis looked at the photograph of Michaela. It appears she did not. Kung watched him across the table. You are moving too quickly from access records to an accusation. I haven't accused anyone. You implied Denise took the vehicle. The evidence implies it. But you believe there is another possibility. Dennis grew quiet. Lynn noticed the change in his breathing, the slight tightening of his fingers. He knew something he had not yet said. What are you protecting? She asked. Dennis looked at her. I'm not protecting anyone. You looked at Denise's name without surprise. His eyes narrowed. You expected it. I expected a family connection. No, you expected her. Dennis said nothing. Lynn continued. You contacted Kung before speaking to Denise because you were afraid she would warn someone. Dennis looked toward the windows. Deborah. The name landed heavily. What about her? Lynn asked. My niece has a history of unstable behavior. I know about the threats. You know some of them. Lynn's voice cooled. How many were there? Dennis rubbed one thumb against the edge of the folder. Deborah has threatened former employers, neighbors, 2 landlords, and at least 1 family member. Was she ever charged? Twice. And convicted? No. Why? Complaints were withdrawn. After you paid people? Dennis met her eyes. After attorneys reached agreements. Lynn pushed back from the table. So your family taught her that threats have no consequences. I did not teach her anything. You protected her from learning. Dennis's face tightened. She was 22 the first time. And now? 37. That is 15 years of people cleaning up behind her. Dennis glanced at the closed door. Denise usually handles her. There it is, Lynn said. Kung looked at her. Explain. Dennis doesn't think Denise planned this. She turned toward him. He thinks Denise helped Deborah do it, or helped conceal it. Dennis remained silent. Lynn knew she was right. Denise has the credentials, she continued. She has the corporate access. She knows how to make a vehicle disappear inside company records. But Deborah has the anger. And the fixation, Dennis said quietly. Lynn's skin went cold. What fixation? Your father's will. Dennis rose and walked toward the window. For the first time since the meeting began, he looked less like a chief executive and more like a tired man carrying the consequences of other people's choices. Deborah believes William's property belongs to Louise. It doesn't. I know. She also believes that once Louise dies, the land should pass to her and Denise. Based on what? Something Louise told them years ago. What? That William had promised to take care of them. Lynn shook her head. Taking care of someone does not mean giving them everything he owns. Deborah does not respond well to distinctions. That is not an excuse. No. Dennis turned from the glass. It is a warning. Lynn stood. She threatened my children before I ever came to Atlanta. My father dismissed it. Louise defended her. Denise covered for her. And you paid attorneys to keep her behavior out of court. Dennis's expression hardened, but his voice did not rise. You have every right to be angry. I don't need your permission. No, you don't. He returned to the table. But if Deborah is involved, anger will not stop her. Neither will another private agreement. There will be no agreement. Lynn searched his face. You expect me to trust that? No. Dennis slid his tablet toward Daniel. This contains the original access logs, internal work orders, garage footage, and employee permission records. Your analyst can verify them. Why give us this? Lynn asked. Because someone used my company to terrorize 3 children. His eyes moved to the photograph of Michaela. And because I should have stopped protecting my family from the consequences of its own behavior a long time ago. Kung closed the tablet cover. What will you do about Denise? Bring her to my office tomorrow morning. You'll question her? No. Dennis looked at Lynn. You will. Lynn's eyebrows lifted. Why me? Because Denise has lied to me since she was 16. A bitter smile touched his mouth. She's very good at it. Kung looked toward Lynn. She is better. Dennis nodded. That is what I am counting on. The meeting ended shortly before 10. Rain slicked the pavement and turned the city lights into ribbons of red and gold. Daniel walked ahead to inspect the car while Dennis remained beneath the restaurant awning. Dr. Smith. Lynn stopped. Kung stood beside her. Dennis approached, keeping his hands visible. I need you to understand something about Deborah. I understand enough. No. His expression was grave. People assume she loses control. She does not. Lynn waited. She becomes calmer when she has decided to hurt someone. A cold drop of rain struck Lynn's cheek. What does that look like? She stops calling. Stops threatening. She becomes polite. Dennis glanced toward the street. That is when Denise usually goes looking for her. When was the last time anyone heard from Deborah? 3 days ago. The SUV returned 3 days ago. Yes. Has Denise reported her missing? No. Lynn's instincts sharpened. Because she knows where Deborah is. That would be my assumption. Kung stepped closer. Do they have access to William's house? Louise gave both daughters keys years ago. Lynn reached for her phone. Kung caught her wrist gently. Who are you calling? My father. If Deborah is there, A ringing phone could alert her. "I am not doing nothing. I did not ask you to." He looked toward Daniel. "Send a team to William Street. No approach until we know who is inside." Daniel was already speaking into his radio. Kung released Lynn's wrist. She called William anyway. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. No answer. "Again," she said. She called a second time. Voicemail. Lynn's pulse climbed. He might be asleep. Neither man answered. Kung guided her toward the car. "We will confirm." "I'm going with the team." "No." Lynn stopped beneath the rain. Kung turned back. "That is my father. And your children are waiting for you. Do not use them to keep me out of this. I'm trying to keep you alive. And I am telling you that I will not sit in your guest house while everyone else makes decisions about my family." The rain gathered in Kung's hair and darkened the shoulders of his coat. For several seconds, they faced each other. Then he nodded once. "You stay beside me." "I can agree to that." "You follow Daniel's instructions if the situation changes. If they make sense." Daniel opened the rear door. "They will." Lynn entered the car. Kung followed. As they pulled away, Dennis remained under the awning, his phone pressed to his ear. Naomi's voice came through Daniel's earpiece. "Security team is 6 minutes from William's residence. No vehicles registered to Denise or Deborah are visible." Lynn looked at Kung. "That doesn't mean they aren't there." "No." He reached for her hand. This time, he did not wait for her to close the distance. His fingers wrapped around hers, firm and warm. "We will find out." Lynn held on as the car accelerated through the rain. The corporate records had given them Denise. The threats had given them Deborah. But somewhere between the two sisters stood Louise, the woman with access to William's home, knowledge of his health, and nearly 5 million reasons to want Lynn gone. For the first time, Lynn understood that the danger might not be moving toward her father. It might already be inside his house. William was asleep in his recliner when the security team reached his house. Lynn saw him through the living room window, the television casting a pale blue light across his face. His oxygen tube remained in place. One hand rested on his chest, alive, safe, for the moment. Louise's car was gone. Officer Carter arrived minutes later and entered with the spare key William had given Lynn. Her father woke to 4 strangers in his living room and responded with language strong enough to reassure everyone that his heart was still working. He refused to leave the house. "This is my home." "Someone may be planning to hurt you," Lynn said. "Then they can try it in a house I paid for." "That is not how security works. It's how ownership works." Kung arranged for 2 men to remain outside through the night. William complained. Lynn ignored him. By morning, he had answered 3 of her calls and promised not to open the door for anyone except the security team. It was not enough to make her comfortable. It was enough to get her into Dennis Brooks's office. Denise arrived 20 minutes late. She entered the conference room wearing a cream pantsuit, pointed heels, and an expression of polished annoyance. Dennis waited at the head of the table. Officer Carter sat near the door. Daniel stood by the windows. Kung remained beside Lynn. Denise stopped when she saw them. "What is this?" "A conversation," Dennis said. "With a police officer present?" Carter gestured toward an empty chair. "You're not under arrest." "Then I'm leaving." "You can," Lynn said. Denise looked at her for the first time. Lynn saw the recognition, then the resentment. It vanished almost immediately beneath a professional smile. "Lynn, Denise, I heard about the trouble at your house. I'm sorry you and the children went through that." "No, you're not." Dennis's voice hardened. "Sit down." Denise looked at her uncle. "I have a 10 o'clock meeting." "It's been canceled." "You canceled my meeting?" "I canceled your building access." Her smile disappeared. Dennis placed her company identification card on the table. Security had taken it when she entered. Denise stared at it. "What have you done?" "That depends on what you've done." After a moment, she sat. Daniel slid the garage record across the table. Denise glanced at it. "I don't know what this is." Your credentials released an executive SUV from the company garage, Dennis said. I use company vehicles all the time. This one was used to photograph Lynn's children. Denise looked at the image of Michaela on the playground. Her face barely changed. Barely. Lynn noticed the single pause in her breathing, the way her gaze moved away from Michaela before it moved away from the boys. You've seen that photograph before, Lynn said. Denise turned to her. No. You recognized it. I recognized your daughter. From a surveillance picture? From family photographs. Which family photographs? Denise hesitated. Louise has pictures. She has photographs of Michaela standing on that playground? That isn't what I meant. Then tell me what you meant. Denise looked toward Dennis. Why is she questioning me? Because I asked her to, he said. She's not a police officer. No, Lynn said. I'm a forensic psychologist. Denise gave a small laugh. So this is what? You're going to analyze me? I already am. Silence settled over the table. Denise crossed one leg over the other. You think that makes you intimidating? No. Lynn leaned back. I think you came in here prepared to deal with your uncle's anger, Officer Carter's questions, and whatever evidence Daniel placed on this table. She held Denise's gaze. You didn't prepare for me. Carter opened a folder. The SUV left the Brooks Pharmaceutical garage using your credentials. Someone entered a false maintenance order to hide its absence. The GPS was disabled. I told you, I use company vehicles. Did you use this one? Carter asked. No. Did you lend your credentials to anyone? No. Were they stolen? No. Then how did the vehicle leave? I don't know. Lynn watched Denise's hands. Perfectly still. Too still. You created the maintenance order, she said. Denise looked at her. That's ridiculous. Your credentials opened the gate, but a shared administrative account created the order. That gave you distance from the paperwork. I didn't create anything. You didn't take the photographs either. No. You didn't follow the children. No. You didn't force my car toward the barrier. Denise's eyes flickered. There. Fear. Not guilt. They tried to run you off the road? Dennis turned sharply. You knew about the surveillance, but not the highway attack. I didn't know about any of it. Lynn continued as though Denise had not spoken. You thought this was about frightening me. It wasn't supposed to become violent. The words escaped softly. Everyone in the room heard them. Denise closed her eyes. Dennis sat back. God help you. I didn't say. You did, Carter said. Denise stood. I'm calling my attorney. You should, Dennis replied. She reached for her identification card. Daniel placed one hand over it. Denise stared at him. Move your hand. No. She turned toward the door. Lynn did not stop her. Deborah will blame you. Denise froze. Lynn waited. She always does, doesn't she? Denise remained facing the door. When something goes wrong, Deborah says it was your idea. Louise says you should have watched her more closely. Then your uncle pays the lawyers, and everyone expects you to put the family back together. Denise slowly turned around. You don't know anything about my family. I know your role in it. Lynn's voice remained quiet. You're the capable daughter, the reasonable sister, the one who receives the phone call after Deborah threatens someone, destroys something, or loses control. I told you. You hide the evidence. You repair the damage. You convince everyone that protecting Deborah is the same as loving her. Denise looked at Dennis. He said nothing. For the first time, her composure began to fracture. You gave Deborah access to the SUV, Lynn said. Then you created the maintenance order and disabled the tracking so your uncle wouldn't know. No. You believed she wanted to watch me. No. You believed she would scare me back to California. No. You believed that because it was easier than admitting what your sister is capable of. I said no. Then look at the photograph. Lynn pushed Michaela's picture across the table. Look at my 7-year-old daughter and say you had nothing to do with it. Denise tried to avoid the photograph. Lynn stopped it beneath her hand. "Look at her." "Lynn," Kung said quietly. She heard the warning in his voice. Not because she was wrong, because anger was pulling her away from the purpose of the interview. She took a breath, then another. When she spoke again, her voice was controlled. "Deborah watched my children because you gave her the means to do it." Denise looked down at Michaela. Her lips parted. No sound came. Then her shoulders lowered. "I didn't know she would go near the schools." Dennis stared at her. "What did you think she was going to do with an untracked company vehicle?" "Follow Lynn." "Why?" "To see if she was meeting with developers." Lynn almost laughed. "You thought I was secretly negotiating the sale of land I didn't know I owned?" "That's what Deborah said." "And you believed her?" "William changed his will 6 weeks after you moved back." "I didn't know about the will." "I know that now." "After my children were threatened." Denise's eyes filled. "I didn't threaten them." "You made it possible." Officer Carter moved the school photographs aside. "Who drove the gray sedan?" "I don't know." "Who broke into Dr. Smith's townhouse?" "I don't know." "Who sent the messages?" "I don't know." "But you know who used the SUV." Denise looked at the table. "Deborah." "Did anyone help her?" "No." Lynn heard the answer immediately. A practiced lie. Short, certain, designed to end the subject. "Louise did," Lynn said. Denise's eyes lifted. "Leave my mother out of this." "Your mother has been in this from the beginning." "No." "She blocked visits between my children and their grandfather." "She was protecting William's health." "She told you about the will." "Because she was upset." "She convinced Deborah I came to steal the property." "You don't understand what William promised her." "What did he promise?" "That she would never have to worry about money." "Then she should discuss that with her husband. She should not send her daughters after me." "She didn't send anyone." "You changed your answer." Denise frowned. "What?" "When I asked if anyone helped Deborah, you said no. When I named Louise, you defended her." "That doesn't mean anything." "It means you are more afraid of implicating your mother than your sister." Denise stood again. "I'm done." Carter remained seated. "You are free to leave. But once you walk out, I'm requesting warrants for your phone, your home, and every device connected to your company credentials." Denise looked at Dennis. "You're going to let them do this?" "I'm going to cooperate. I'm your niece. And those are children." Dennis pointed toward the photographs. "You used my company to help Deborah stalk them." "I made one mistake." "No," Lynn said. "You made a series of decisions." Denise turned on her. "You think you're better than us because you left." "I left because I had a life." "You stayed away for 20 years. Then you appeared when William's health got worse." "I came because 2 people in our family died." "You came because you knew he felt guilty." Lynn rose slowly. "Is that what Louise told you?" Denise's expression changed. "Your mother needed you to believe I was calculating," Lynn continued, "because if I was only a daughter trying to bring her children home, then what she did to us would be impossible to justify." "My mother didn't do anything to you." "She turned my father's weakness into a weapon." "William made his own choices." "He did." Lynn held her gaze. "And now he has made another one." Denise looked away first. Kung's phone vibrated. He checked the screen. "Naomi found the utility truck." Everyone turned toward him. "It was purchased for cash 6 months ago under a false name. Traffic cameras recorded it entering a storage facility near Decatur 3 days before it appeared at Lynn's workplace." "Who rented the unit?" Carter asked. "Deborah Brooks." Denise sat down again. Her face had gone pale. Kung continued. "Police are searching it now." Carter's phone rang seconds later. She answered. "Carter." Her expression sharpened as she listened. "What did they find?" Lynn asked the question before Carter lowered the phone. "Magnetic utility logos, camera equipment, disposable phones." Carter looked at Denise. "And copies of William Smith's medical records." Denise covered her mouth. "No." "What would Deborah need those for?" Dennis asked. Lynn already knew. She needed to know how much pressure his heart could tolerate. The room went silent. Denise shook her head. She wouldn't hurt him. Deborah threatened children she had never met, Lynn said. Why are you still deciding where her line is? She loves William. No, she loves what she thinks he owes her. Denise's phone vibrated inside her purse. Everyone heard it. She did not reach for it. Carter stood. Take it out. I need a warrant. You can refuse. Carter moved closer. But judging by your expression, I think we should all know who sent that message. Denise stared at the purse. Lynn watched the last of her resistance collapse. With trembling fingers, Denise removed the phone. The message was from Louise. We're here. She has the papers. Call me when it's finished. Lynn's blood turned cold. Here where? Carter asked. Denise said nothing. Where is your mother? Dennis demanded. Tears filled Denise's eyes. At William's house. Lynn moved toward the door. Kung caught up with her in the hallway. What papers? The new will. Denise's voice came from behind them. Everyone turned. She stood in the conference room doorway, the phone hanging loosely in her hand. Mother had an attorney prepare it. The property goes to her. After she dies, it passes to Deborah and me. William already refused to sign, Lynn said. That's why Deborah went with her. Dennis's face hardened. You knew about this? I told them not to do it. But you didn't stop them. I thought Mother could make him understand. Understand what? Lynn demanded. That we were his family too. Lynn stepped toward her. My father is alone in that house with a serious heart condition, and Deborah has his medical records. Tell me exactly what they planned. Denise began to cry. Deborah said fear would make him sign. They ran for the elevators. Daniel spoke into his radio as the doors closed. Team 1, report. Static answered. Then a strained voice. Both exterior guards are down. Alive, possibly sedated. Front entrance is locked. Curtains closed. Lynn's heart slammed against her ribs. How did they get past them? Louise, Kung said. The guards knew she lived there. Carter requested patrol units and medical support. Dennis called his attorney, then disconnected before the man could finish speaking. The elevator doors opened into the lobby. Rain pounded against the windows. Daniel moved ahead, clearing the entrance. Kung caught Lynn's hand before she stepped outside. Listen to me. We don't have time. We have 10 seconds. His hands settled on her shoulders. If Deborah has a weapon, you do not approach her. That is my father. And you are the mother of 3 children. I know exactly who I am. Then remember, they need you to come home. Lynn looked up at him. Rainwater struck the glass behind his head. Police sirens wailed somewhere beyond the building. I cannot lose him because I waited outside. You will not lose him. You can't promise that. No. His grip softened. But I can promise you will not face her alone. For one brief moment, fear broke through Lynn's control. What if we're too late? Kung drew her closer. Not an embrace. Not quite. His forehead touched hers, shutting out the noise around them. Then we deal with what we find. His voice was steady. But until we know otherwise, your father is alive and waiting for you. Lynn closed her eyes. One breath, then another. When she opened them, Kung stepped back. Ready? No. She took his hand. Let's go. The drive to William's house took 11 minutes. It felt like an hour. Carter coordinated responding officers from the front seat. Daniel drove through the rain while Kung monitored the security team. Lynn called William. No answer. She called again. This time someone answered. No one spoke. Lynn pressed the phone to her ear. Daddy? A faint scraping sound came through the line. Then Louise's voice. You should have stayed in California. The call ended. Lynn stared at the dark screen. Kung's expression changed. What did she say? Lynn looked toward the rain-soaked road ahead. The same thing Deborah said. Carter turned in her seat. What does that mean? It means we were wrong about Louise. Her voice grew cold. She wasn't protecting Deborah. Blue lights appeared ahead, reflecting against the wet pavement. She was directing her. The car turned onto William Street. His house stood near the end of the block, every curtain drawn. A lamp glowed behind the front window. Then a shadow crossed it. Another figure followed. Lynn saw the outline of an arm lifting, something dark held in one hand. A gun. Daniel stopped the car behind a police cruiser. Officers moved into position. Kung reached for Lynn. Before he could touch her, the sound of breaking glass came from inside the house. Then William shouted her name, and a gunshot tore through the night. The gunshot shattered the front window. Lynn moved before she thought. Kung caught her around the waist and pulled her behind the police cruiser as glass rained across the porch. "Let me go." "No. My father is in there. And the shooter is still armed." Officer Carter crouched behind the cruiser's open door, one hand pressed to her radio. "Shot fired. Begin evacuation of adjacent homes. I need tactical response and medical staging now." A second officer moved toward the side of the house. Daniel caught his arm and pointed toward a small camera mounted beneath the eaves. "They can see the approach." "How many cameras?" Carter asked. "2 that belong to the house, possibly more." Lynn stared at the broken window. The lamp inside had gone dark. "Daddy!" Kung tightened his hold as she tried to stand. "Lynn, he called my name. I heard him. Then let me go. Running into that house will not save him." She turned on Kung. "You don't know that." "No." Rain streamed down his face. "But I know your father needs you thinking, not reacting." The words struck hard enough to reach her. Lynn stopped fighting him. Kung released her slowly, but kept one hand around her wrist. Not restraint now. Connection. Carter moved beside them. "Did Louise or Deborah ever use firearms?" "Deborah threatened me with one," Lynn said. "I don't know if she owned it." "Your father?" "He kept an old revolver in a lockbox." "Where?" "Bedroom closet." Daniel spoke into his radio. "Thermal scan shows 3 people in the living room, 1 seated, 2 standing." "Can you identify the weapon?" Carter asked. "No." A phone rang inside the house. Lynn looked down. Her screen showed her father's number. She answered immediately. "Daddy?" Deborah's voice came through the phone. "Tell them to leave." Lynn put the call on speaker. "I need to hear my father." "He's alive. Let me hear him." Silence. Then William spoke. "I'm all right, baby." His breathing was rough, too fast. "Daddy, listen to me. Keep your oxygen on." "They took it." Lynn's eyes closed briefly. "Put his oxygen back on," she said. Deborah laughed. "You don't give orders here." "Then consider it self-interest. If he dies, he can't sign anything." The laughter stopped. Several seconds passed. Lynn heard movement. Then William drew a deeper breath. "Thank you," she said. "I didn't do it for you." "I know." "What do you want, Deborah?" "You know what I want." "The land. It belongs to my mother." "No, it belongs to William." Louise's voice rose in the background. "I have been his wife for 23 years." Lynn's grip tightened around the phone. "And you repay that by holding a gun on him?" "I don't have the gun." "No, you brought the woman who does." "Tell the police to leave," Deborah said. "They won't." "Then he dies." "Deborah," Lynn kept her voice steady, "you didn't bring the papers there to kill him. You brought them because you need his signature. He's going to sign. Not with a house surrounded by witnesses. They won't be witnesses if they leave. That isn't going to happen." Lynn looked toward Carter. The officer nodded, encouraging her to continue. "You have spent weeks trying to frighten me," Lynn said. "You wanted me to run back to California." "You should have. But I didn't." "You think that man can save you?" Deborah's voice sharpened. "You think hiding in his mansion makes you special? This has nothing to do with Kung. It has everything to do with him. You came here with nothing. Now you have William's land and some rich man protecting you." Lynn heard what lived beneath the rage. Envy, humiliation, a lifetime of believing affection was something other people stole. "You think I took your place," Lynn said. A pause. You took everything. No, I reminded you that it was never yours. The line went quiet. Kung's eyes met hers. Caution. Lynn understood. She had pushed too hard. When Deborah spoke again, her voice was calm, dangerously calm. Come inside. No, Kung said. Deborah heard him. If Lynn doesn't walk through that door in 2 minutes, I shoot William. The call ended. No, Kung repeated. Lynn looked at Carter. Can your team get inside in 2 minutes? Not without increasing the risk to your father. Then I'm going in. You're a civilian. I'm the person she wants. That makes you another hostage. It also moves her attention away from my father. Kung stepped between Lynn and the house. You are not walking in there alone. She won't let you come with me. I do not care what she permits. I do. Lynn lowered her voice. Because if you go through that door, Deborah will shoot before either of us can speak. And if you enter alone? She'll talk. You cannot know that. I know her type. This is not one of your evaluations. No. Lynn looked toward the dark window. This is my family. Kung's jaw tightened. For the first time since she had known him, his control looked fragile. I will not stand here and watch you place yourself in front of a gun. You told me trust should depend on what someone does next. This is different. Trust me now. Rain struck the roof of the cruiser. Sirens approached in the distance. Kung looked at the house, then back at Lynn. You keep the phone line open. I will. You do not move within reach of her. I won't. If Daniel gives the signal, you get down immediately. I understand. He removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders. It was a small, ordinary gesture in the middle of chaos, warmth against the rain. His hands remained on the coat near her collar. Come back out, he said. Lynn looked up at him. I intend to. That was not a request. Despite everything, a faint smile touched her mouth. I know. Lynn walked toward the house with both hands raised. Broken glass covered the porch. The front door opened before she reached it. Louise stood on the other side. Her hair had come loose from its usual smooth style. Rain blew through the doorway and spotted the front of her blouse. You always did make everything difficult, Louise said. Step aside. You should have stayed where you belonged. With my children? In California. This is my father's home. It is my home. Louise's face twisted. I took care of him when you were busy building your life. You kept me away and called it care. I was the one here for the hospital stays, the medications, the nights he couldn't breathe. And you deserve recognition for that. Louise looked startled. You do, Lynn continued. But gratitude is not ownership. Marriage does not give you the right to terrorize his daughter or his grandchildren. I never touched your children. You gave Deborah the information she needed. I told her to make you leave. By any means necessary? Louise looked away. That was answer enough. Lynn stepped inside. William sat in his recliner with his oxygen tube restored. A red mark darkened one side of his face. The new will lay on the coffee table beside a pen. Deborah stood behind him. The gun in her hand pointed toward his chest. Lynn's fear became something colder, more useful. Move the gun away from him. Deborah smiled. She resembled Denise around the eyes, but there was none of Denise's polish. Her hair was pulled into a careless knot, and her sweatshirt was streaked with dirt. This was the first time Lynn had stood in the same room with her, the woman who had threatened her family without ever meeting them. You don't look scared, Deborah said. I am. Liar. Being afraid and being helpless are not the same. Deborah's smile faded. Lynn looked at William. Are you hurt? She hit me with the gun, he said. Louise sighed. He wouldn't stop shouting. You let her strike your husband? He was making things worse. William looked at Louise. Something inside him seemed to break, not his heart, the last illusion he had protected. You brought her into my house with a gun. I brought papers. You opened the door. I was trying to protect our future. Our future? His voice rose. You tried to scare my child out of Georgia. I gave you 23 years. and I gave you a home. You were going to leave it all to her. She is my daughter. So are Denise and Deborah. No. The word carried through the room. Louise stared at him. William's breathing grew labored, but his voice remained firm. They are your daughters. I cared for them because I loved you. Deborah's grip tightened around the gun. You said we were family. You were. Were? William looked up at her. Family does not put a gun to your chest. Lynn shifted one step closer. Deborah immediately turned the weapon toward her. Stop! Lynn stopped. Outside, a police light swept across the broken window. Blue, then darkness. You want me to give up the land, Lynn said. You're going to sign it over. I don't own it. You will when he dies. Louise turned sharply. Deborah. What? We are not talking about William dying. He is sick. Everybody dies. William's face changed. Louise stepped toward her daughter. Put the gun down. Not until she signs. There is nothing for her to sign, Louise said. Deborah shoved the pen toward William. His hand remained on the arm of the chair. No. She pressed the muzzle against his shoulder. Sign it. No. Lynn watched Deborah's face, her breathing, the small tremor beginning in her trigger finger. This was no longer controlled intimidation. The plan was collapsing. Deborah, Lynn said, look at me. I am looking at you. No, you're looking at the person your mother blamed. Louise drew in a sharp breath. Don't listen to her. She told you I was the reason you would lose everything. Shut up. She sent you after me because she knew you would do what Denise wouldn't. Shut up. But if this goes wrong, she'll say it was all your idea. Deborah's eyes moved toward Louise, only for a second. Louise saw it. That is not true. Isn't it? Lynn asked. Who called me from my father's phone? Louise went pale. Who told Deborah when I visited him? No answer. Who gave her his medical records? Deborah looked at her mother. You said Denise got those. Louise's mouth opened. Nothing came out. There it was, a fracture in their alliance. Lynn pressed carefully. Denise is speaking to the police. Deborah's expression emptied. What did she tell them? Everything. She wouldn't. She gave them the SUV records. That's a lie. She told them about the surveillance, the storage unit, the fake utility truck. Louise backed toward the hallway. Deborah noticed. Where are you going? Nowhere. You're leaving. No, baby. Don't call me that. The gun swung toward Louise. Lynn moved, not forward, sideways, placing herself closer to William. Deborah caught the movement and turned back. I told you not to move. Her finger tightened. William grabbed the heavy ceramic mug from the side table and threw it. The mug struck Deborah's wrist. The gun fired. William jerked. Blood spread across the shoulder of his sweatshirt. Daddy! Lynn dropped beside him as the front door burst inward. Daniel entered first. Officer Carter and 2 uniformed officers followed. Deborah tried to raise the weapon. Kung came through the doorway behind Daniel and drove her arm toward the floor. The gun discharged again. The bullet tore into the wall. Daniel kicked the weapon out of reach. Carter forced Deborah onto her stomach and pulled her hands behind her back. Do not move. You broke my wrist, Deborah screamed. You're alive, Carter said. Be grateful. Louise ran toward the hallway. An officer intercepted her. I didn't do anything. Lynn pressed both hands against William's shoulder. Blood seeped between her fingers. He's been shot. Kung was beside her immediately. Daniel, medical team. They're coming. William opened his eyes. Baby, I'm here. Did I get her? A laugh broke through Lynn's panic. You threw a coffee mug at a woman with a gun. It was the only thing I had. That was a terrible idea. It worked. His eyes closed. Daddy. Kung found the pulse at William's neck. He's conscious. His breathing is shallow. Stay with him. Kung placed one hand over Lynn's, strengthening the pressure against the wound. Look at me, William. William's eyes opened again. You're too bossy. So I've been told. By her? Frequently. William managed a weak smile. Paramedics rushed through the door. Lynn moved only when they made her. As they lifted William onto the stretcher, his hand searched the air. She caught it. "I'm coming with you." His grip loosened as they carried him outside. Lynn followed. She stopped on the porch when she heard Louise shouting behind her. "I am his wife. I should be in the ambulance." Carter led her through the doorway in handcuffs. Lynn stared at the woman who had spent months hiding cruelty beneath concern. Louise's face crumpled. "I never told Deborah to shoot him." "You told her to make me leave." "I didn't know she would go this far." "You gave an unstable woman a target and convinced yourself you could control where she stopped." Louise began to cry. "Lynn, please." Lynn looked at her without anger. The absence of it surprised them both. "You tried to take my children's mother away from them." Louise's tears continued. "You don't get to ask me for comfort." Carter guided her toward the police car. Deborah followed moments later, still screaming that the property belonged to her. Dennis stood near the curb. He had arrived during the confrontation and remained beyond the police line. When he saw his nieces in handcuffs, he closed his eyes. Then he stepped aside and let the officers take them. William underwent surgery shortly after midnight. The bullet had passed through the muscle above his left shoulder without striking bone or a major artery. The greater concern was his heart. Stress had triggered an acute cardiac episode, and his oxygen levels had fallen dangerously low before the ambulance reached the hospital. Lynn sat beside his bed after the doctors stabilized him. Machines tracked each heartbeat. An oxygen mask covered part of his face. He looked smaller beneath the hospital blankets. Kung waited near the window. Daniel had returned to the estate to stay with the children. Naomi remained with them too, though Lynn had spoken to Will twice and Michaela 4 times. David had asked only one question. "Is Grandpa coming home?" Lynn had said yes. She needed it to be true. William stirred. His eyes opened slowly. "You still here?" "Where else would I be?" "You have children. They're safe." "The Korean fellow?" Lynn looked toward Kung. "He's here too." William turned his head slightly. Kung stepped closer. "You kept her safe," William said. "She kept herself safe." "Good answer." Lynn adjusted her father's blanket. "You should rest." "I've been resting for hours." "You've been unconscious." "Same difference." She smiled through the tears gathering in her eyes. William looked at her. "Louise?" "Under arrest." "Deborah?" "Also under arrest." "Denise?" "Cooperating with the police." He closed his eyes. "I was a fool." "Yes." His eyes opened again. "You could have softened that." "We agreed to tell the truth." A faint smile appeared beneath the oxygen mask. "I loved Louise. I know. I thought keeping the peace was kindness. It was easier." "Yes." The admission carried no defense. "I let silence do damage I should have stopped." Lynn took his hand. "You can do better next time." His fingers moved weakly around hers. "You're giving me one?" "One." "That sounds strict." "It is." "Can the children come see me?" "When the doctor approves." "Tomorrow?" "When the doctor approves." William frowned. "You really are bossy." Kung's voice came quietly from behind her. "She is." Lynn looked over her shoulder. "You are not supposed to agree with him." William smiled. "I like him." "So does everybody else, apparently." Dennis waited outside the hospital room. His tie was gone, and fatigue lined his face. When Lynn stepped into the hallway, he stood. "How is William?" "Stable." "I'm glad." She crossed her arms. "What happens now?" "Brooks Pharmaceutical has turned over every relevant company record to Officer Carter." "And Denise?" "Suspended without pay. Her employment will be terminated after the internal review." "She helped stalk my children." "I know. Losing a job is not accountability." "No." Dennis met her gaze. "She will face whatever charges the evidence supports. I will not interfere." "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to watch what I do next." The words reminded her of Kung. Trust should be based on what a person did next. Dennis continued. The company will also pay for independent security for your father's home, medical expenses not covered by insurance, and the repair of your townhouse. I don't want your money. It is not a gift. Then what is it? Responsibility. Lynn studied him. You didn't order the attacks. No. But you spent years teaching your family that consequences could be negotiated. Dennis looked toward William's room. Yes. It was the first time she had heard him speak without the protection of authority. I cannot change what Deborah did, he said, but I can stop shielding the people who helped her. That includes Louise. Yes. And Denise. His pause was brief, but it was there. Yes. Lynn nodded. That will have to be enough for tonight. Dennis turned to leave. Mr. Brooks, he looked back. If you change your mind, if one attorney pressures a witness or one record disappears, I will find out. I believe you. His gaze moved briefly toward Kung. And if you don't, he will. Kung's expression remained calm. He understands correctly. Dennis gave a tired nod and walked away. Morning light filled the hospital windows. Officer Carter had taken Lynn's final statement. The surgeons had repeated that William was stable. The children were on their way with Daniel. For the first time since the gunshot, no one needed an immediate decision from her. Lynn stood at the end of the quiet hallway, staring out at Atlanta. Kung approached and held out a cup. Coffee. She accepted it. You remembered? Yes. Cream? 2. No sugar? Correct. She took a sip. It was exactly right. You were supposed to keep me outside, she said. You were supposed to follow Daniel's instructions. I did. Eventually. She looked at him. Are you angry? Yes. The honesty surprised her. Kung placed his hands in his coat pockets. I am also relieved. I had to go inside. I know. If I hadn't, I know. His voice softened. Understanding why you did something does not mean I enjoyed watching you do it. Lynn looked down at the coffee. Thank you. For what? Not treating me like I was helpless. You have never appeared helpless. Not even on the highway? No. You were terrified. Those are not the same thing. The words reached something deep inside her. Kung had seen her frightened, exhausted, angry, uncertain. He had never mistaken any of it for weakness. Lynn stepped closer. You came through that door. Yes. You could have been shot. So could you. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. She looked up at him. His face remained composed, but his eyes betrayed the fear he had carried since she walked into William's house. Lynn set the coffee on the windowsill. Then she placed one hand against his chest. Kung went still. She rose onto her toes and kissed his cheek, softly. His eyes closed for the briefest moment. When she stepped back, he looked at her. What was that for? Coming through the door. I would do it again. I know. Is that a warning or gratitude? Both. The corner of his mouth lifted. His dimple appeared. Lynn smiled. Then the elevator doors opened. Michaela ran out first with Mr. Buttons tucked beneath one arm. Mommy! Lynn turned in time to catch her. Will and David followed, trying to appear calmer than they were. All 3 children wrapped themselves around her. Daniel stepped from the elevator behind them. You brought them to a hospital before breakfast? Lynn asked. They refused to eat. We were worried, Will said. I told them you were safe. David looked at Daniel. You said she was safe after we got here. That was implied. It was not. Michaela lifted her head from Lynn's shoulder. Is Grandpa okay? He's going to be. Can we see him? Soon. Will looked past Lynn toward Kung. You kept her safe? Kung looked at Lynn before answering. We kept each other safe. Will considered that, then nodded. Good. Lynn gathered her children closer. Beyond the windows, Atlanta was waking. Traffic moved through rain-washed streets. Sunlight touched the tops of buildings. Somewhere below, officers were finishing reports that would become charges, court dates, and evidence. Nothing had been erased. William still had healing to do. Louise had chosen greed over the family she claimed to protect. Denise would have to answer for every door she opened and every record she concealed. Deborah would no longer hide behind apologies purchased by someone else. But Lynn's children were safe. Her father was alive, and the man standing beside her had never once asked her to become smaller so he could protect her. Michaela reached toward Kung. He took her from Lynn's arms without hesitation. She rested her head against his shoulder. David began explaining that hospital vending machines charged too much for chips. Will asked Daniel whether the police had recovered every surveillance camera. For the first time in weeks, their questions sounded like questions instead of fear. Lynn picked up her coffee. Kung stood beside her with Michaela in his arms, and Mr. Buttons pressed awkwardly beneath his chin. He looked at Lynn. "Are you ready?" She glanced toward her father's room, then at her children, then back at him. Yes. This time she meant it. The danger was over. What came next would not be survival. It would be the work of rebuilding, and Lynn Smith would not have to do it alone. 3 weeks after Deborah's arrest, Lynn woke without reaching for her phone. She lay beneath the comforter and listened. No unfamiliar engine near the road, no urgent call from Officer Carter, no footsteps outside the guest house, only cabinet doors opening downstairs. Then David shouted, "That is not how you make pancakes." Will answered, "I know how to make pancakes." "They're smoking." "They are not." Lynn closed her eyes. Normal. Beautiful. Aggravating normal. She pulled on her robe and went downstairs. Will stood at the stove with a spatula in one hand and a dish towel over his shoulder. Smoke curled above the pan. David watched from a safe distance while Michaela sat at the table feeding banana pieces to Mr. Buttons. Lynn stopped in the doorway. "Should I call the fire department?" "They aren't burned," Will said. David pointed toward the pan. "They're emotionally burned." "So have we," Will replied. "We're still edible." David stared at him. "That sounded better in your head." It did. The doorbell rang. Michaela jumped down. "I'll get it." Lynn caught the back of her pajama shirt. "No, ma'am." "We're safe now." "We are." Lynn kissed the top of her head. "But I'm still the adult." She checked the security screen before opening the door. Tasha stood outside wearing oversized sunglasses, a bright red blouse, and an expression that suggested she had already taken control of the day. "Tasha?" Her friend pulled her into a tight embrace. "Lord, girl, you look tired." "I'm happy to see you, too." "I'm happy to see you. I'm also telling the truth." Tasha entered carrying 2 grocery bags and an overnight tote. Michaela squealed, "Auntie Tasha!" Tasha dropped the bags just in time to catch her. David appeared from the kitchen. "Did you bring food?" Tasha looked offended. "Do you know me?" "Yes." "Then why would you ask that?" Will leaned into the doorway. "Mom said you were coming next weekend." "I changed my mind. I decided y'all had been unsupervised long enough." Lynn closed the door. "We have not been unsupervised." Smoke drifted out of the kitchen. Tasha removed her sunglasses. "Clearly." Will rushed back to the stove. "My pancakes." "Those are pancakes?" Tasha called after him. David laughed so hard he nearly dropped a plate. Within 20 minutes, Tasha had taken control of the kitchen. The burned pancakes disappeared. Bacon sizzled in a skillet. Music played from her phone as she stirred fresh batter. Lynn sat at the island with her coffee. "I'm glad you're here." Tasha's expression softened. "I should have come sooner." "You called every day." "That isn't the same. You had work. You had people stalking your babies." "Tasha, I know it's over." Her voice quieted. "I also know you would have told me not to come." She was right. Lynn had kept people at a distance because she feared the danger would spread to anyone who stood too close. Tasha rested a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to protect everybody by yourself. I'm learning that." "Good." Tasha glanced through the window. Kung and Daniel were crossing the lawn toward the lake. Both wore casual clothes, though Daniel still carried himself as if he were protecting a head of state. Tasha's eyebrows rose. "Oh. What? That's him?" "That's Kung." Tasha slowly turned. "That is Kung?" "Yes." "The quiet billionaire?" "He has a name." A smile spread across Tasha's face. What? I haven't been here half an hour, and you're already defending him. I'm correcting your manners. Tasha. I said nothing. You said, And apparently, it said enough. Kung knocked shortly before noon. Lynn opened the door while Tasha stood behind her, pretending not to watch. I noticed another vehicle arrive, he said. I wanted to make certain everything was all right. Tasha came to visit. Lynn stepped aside. Tasha Bennett, this is Kung Min Young. Tasha extended her hand. So you're the man who kept my friend and her children alive. Tasha. Kung shook her hand. I had assistance. And humility, Tasha said. That's rare. Lynn sighed. Tasha has been my friend since I moved to Atlanta. 3 months, Tasha added. Long enough to know she lies when she says she's fine. I do not. You do. Kung looked at Lynn. She does. You are not supposed to agree with her. Tasha placed a hand over her heart. Oh, I like him. Kung smiled. Small, genuine. This is going to be a long weekend, Lynn said. It's going to be an excellent weekend, Tasha corrected. At lunch, Tasha treated Kung as though he had applied for a position requiring references. How often does she refuse help before accepting it? Kung considered the question. Frequently. I was protecting my children, Lynn said. Nobody said you weren't. Does she rest? Tasha asked. Rarely. Eat when she's stressed? Not enough. Pretend she isn't scared? Yes. Lynn set down her spoon. Have you two been exchanging notes? No, Kung said. Tasha smiled. We don't need notes. Will hid a laugh behind his napkin. David made no effort to hide his. Michaela leaned toward Kung. Mommy says you talk more now. I did not say that. You said he didn't talk much before. That is not the same thing. Kung looked at Michaela. Your mother encourages conversation. Tasha nearly choked on her tea. Not one word, Lynn warned. I was about to compliment the soup. No, you weren't. After lunch, the children took Tasha on a tour of the estate. They showed her their rooms, the game room, the path to the lake, and the security monitors Will had been forbidden to touch. The children told her what had happened in fragments, not the worst parts. They talked about the cameras, Michaela's butterfly bedroom, and the chef who knew how to make David's eggs without the weird wet part. Lynn watched from the guest house porch. The children were healing. Will still noticed unfamiliar cars. David still checked the locks before bed. Michaela still slept with Mr. Buttons pressed beneath her chin. But they laughed without stopping to listen for danger. They ran across the lawn without Lynn calling them back. They were children again. Kung joined her on the porch. You're smiling. I do that occasionally. I've noticed. She watched Michaela chase David around a tree. They feel safe. And you? Lynn considered the question. Fear still returned in small ways. An unknown number, a car lingering behind her, footsteps in a parking garage. But it no longer controlled every decision. Yes, she said. I do. I'm glad. Tasha stepped onto the porch. Well, that settles it. Settles what? You're going out tonight. Lynn stared at her. I'm doing what? I brought an overnight bag. I'm staying with the kids. You didn't drive all this way to babysit. I drove here because I love you. Tasha came closer. You have spent months working, parenting, moving, worrying, investigating, and keeping everyone else together. You deserve one evening when nobody needs you to solve anything. They always need me. They'll still need you tomorrow. Tonight, they can need me. Lynn looked across the yard. Will stood near the security gate with Daniel. David and Michaela had begun arguing over who reached the tree first. Leaving them for a few hours should not have felt momentous. It did. I wouldn't know where to go. Tasha looked at Kung. I believe there's a man beside you who knows Atlanta. Lynn slowly turned toward him. Kung had remained silent throughout the exchange. Of course he had. My friend likes good food and live music, Tasha told him. Especially jazz. I know, Kung said. Tasha's eyebrows lifted. You remembered? Yes. Her satisfied look made Lynn want to disappear into the house. "There is a small jazz club near Midtown," Kung said. "The owner is an old friend. I would be happy to take you to dinner and the club afterward." Before Lynn could answer, David shouted from the lawn, "Mom, you should go!" "You were listening? You were talking loud." "We were not." "Tasha was," Will called. Michaela ran toward the porch. "Is it a date?" No one said date. Michaela looked at Kung. "Is it?" He considered the question with far more seriousness than it deserved. "I invited your mother to dinner and music." Michaela nodded wisely. "That's a date." Tasha smiled. "I agree." "This feels like an ambush," Lynn said. "A loving ambush." Will climbed the porch steps. "You should go, Mom." "Are you sure?" "We'll be fine. We have Tasha, Daniel, and 112 cameras." 116, Kung corrected. "You added 4? After recent events." "Where?" Kung glanced at Lynn. "We'll discuss that after she leaves." Lynn folded her arms. "I'm beginning to regret letting you two become friends." Will smiled. "You deserve to have fun." The sincerity in his voice touched her. He had watched her give up sleep, meals, plans, and pieces of herself without complaint. Michaela wrapped both arms around Lynn's waist. "You deserve a date." Lynn looked around at all of them, then at Kung. He waited without pressure or expectation. Beneath the nervousness, she felt something unfamiliar. Anticipation. "I'd like to go." His expression softened. "So would I." Tasha followed Lynn upstairs. "Don't start. I haven't said anything. You've been smiling for 5 minutes. I enjoy seeing my friends make good decisions. I agreed to dinner. And jazz. Yes. With a tall, handsome man who remembers what kind of music you like. He has an excellent memory. He knows how you drink your coffee. I know how he drinks his tea." "Exactly." Lynn turned toward her. "What is that supposed to mean?" "You notice each other." Tasha moved beside her at the closet. "You've been surviving for months. Tonight, you get to enjoy yourself." Lynn touched the sleeve of a black dress, then rejected it. "Too serious." "Agreed." Tasha pulled out a wrap dress. The fabric was soft, the waist fitted, the skirt falling well below Lynn's knees. "I bought that before we moved," Lynn said. "Have you worn it?" "No." "Then tonight is its night." By 7, Lynn stood before the mirror adjusting a silver earring. Her makeup was warm and understated. The dress followed her shape with a low-cut V in the front that allowed for cleavage without being overexposed. For once, she studied her reflection without searching for exhaustion. Tasha appeared behind her. "Beautiful." "I'm nervous." "Good." "Good? It means you care." "I haven't been on a date in years." "You're having dinner and listening to music, that's all." Tasha rested her hands on Lynn's shoulders. "You are not betraying your past. You are not neglecting your children. You are giving yourself one evening." Lynn's eyes stung. Tasha turned her around. "You loved your husband. You raised 3 children. You built a career. You survived things that should have broken you." Her voice softened. "You are allowed to enjoy being 34. Lynn laughed through the emotion. "When did you become so wise?" "I've always been wise. You don't listen." "That sounds more like you." A knock sounded downstairs. Michaela screamed, "He's here!" Tasha grinned. "Your date has arrived." Kung waited in the living room, wearing a dark navy suit without a tie and a white shirt open at the collar. Will and David stood nearby. Daniel leaned against the wall, looking far too amused. Michaela circled Kung. "You look fancy." "Thank you." "Are you nervous?" Kung glanced toward Daniel. Daniel suddenly found the window fascinating. "A little," Kung admitted. "Mommy is too." "Michaela," Lynn called from the stairs. Everyone turned. Kung stood. Lynn descended with one hand on the banister. She saw her children's smiles first. Then she looked at Kung. His gaze moved over her face before settling in her eyes. The composure he wore so easily shifted just enough for her to see that she had surprised him. He met her at the foot of the stairs. "You look wonderful." The simple sincerity warmed her. "Thank you," Michaela whispered loudly to David. "He likes her dress." "Everybody likes her dress," David replied. Kung offered his hand. Lynn placed hers in it. "Dinner is at 8, he said. "The music begins at 9:30. "That sounds perfect." Will hugged her. "Have fun." "I will." David raised one finger. "And don't call every 20 minutes. "I do not call every 20 minutes. "You will," Tasha said. "I'll answer twice." "Tasha." 3 times. Lynn hugged each child. Michaela held on the longest. "Bring me dessert." "I thought this evening was supposed to be about me." "It is, but bring dessert." Lynn kissed her forehead. "I'll see what I can do." Kung opened the passenger door of his car. "You're driving?" Lynn asked. "Yes." "No Daniel?" "He will remain with the children." Through the window, Tasha, Daniel, and all 3 children watched them. "Tasha has taken command," Kung said. "She usually does." He waited until Lynn finished waving to Michaela before starting the engine. "You may call whenever you wish." "I know. You do not have to pretend otherwise." "I may call once." "Of course. Possibly twice. I would expect nothing less." Soft jazz flowed through the speakers. Lynn recognized the saxophone immediately. "John Coltrane." "Yes." "You chose this because I said I liked jazz?" "Because you said music helped you remember who you were before life became difficult." She stared at him. She had said it once, quietly, during their conversation on the porch. "You really do remember everything." "Not everything." "Most things?" "Most things that matter." Lynn looked through the window before he could see how deeply the answer affected her. Atlanta's evening lights moved past the glass. For once, she did not search the traffic behind them. She simply listened to the music. The restaurant occupied a renovated brick building near Midtown. Warm light glowed behind tall windows. Their table overlooked the city. No detectives, no evidence folders, no children requesting another roll. Only 2 menus and the low murmur of conversation. "This feels strange," Lynn said. "Uncomfortable?" "No, unfamiliar." "When did you last have dinner without the children?" "I have lunch at work." "That was not my question." She smiled. "I don't remember." "Then we will not discuss work." "What will we discuss?" "I prepared several possibilities." "You prepared topics?" "Daniel said conversation is customary during dinner." Lynn laughed. "What did he suggest?" "Travel, music, childhood memories, avoiding pharmaceutical policy." "That sounds like good advice." I disagreed. "Of course you did." After they ordered, Kung asked where she would go if she could leave tomorrow without responsibilities. "Back to Monterey." "The ocean?" "The mornings, walking along the beach before everyone woke." She looked toward the city. "It was the one place where I belonged only to myself." "Do you miss it?" "Yes." "Would you return?" "To live? I don't know, but I'd like to visit." "Then you should. Life isn't always that simple." "No, but sometimes a plane ticket is." She smiled. "You say that like a man with a private aircraft." "I was thinking commercially." "You were not." "No." Dinner moved easily after that. They talked about music and books. Kung preferred piano and cello. Lynn loved singers whose voices carried history. He admitted he had learned to cook in college, but stopped when his company grew. Lynn demanded evidence. He promised to prepare dinner one day. "The children will judge you harshly." "I expect nothing less." Somewhere between the first course and dessert, Lynn stopped feeling like a woman recovering from danger. She felt like herself, not Dr. Smith, not Mama, not William's daughter, just Lynn. The jazz club was dim and intimate, with small tables surrounding a low stage. Kung's hand rested lightly against Lynn's back as they moved through the room, protective without directing her. The trumpet began before they reached their seats. Lynn closed her eyes. The sound moved through the room like warm smoke. When she opened them, Kung was watching her. "Do I have something on my face?" "No." "Then why are you looking at me?" You look happy." She smiled. "I am." During the second song, Kung placed his hand on the table between them. He did not reach for her. He simply left the choice there. Lynn placed her hand over his. His fingers turned beneath hers and closed gently. They stayed that way through the music. No declarations, no promises, only warmth, and the certainty that neither wanted to pull away. They returned to the estate after midnight. Tasha sat on the guest house sofa wearing pajamas, a satin bonnet, and an expression of extreme interest. Michaela slept beside her with Mr. Buttons beneath her chin. Kung carried Michaela upstairs while Lynn slipped off her shoes. When he returned, Tasha stood. "Did you have a good evening?" "A very good evening." Tasha attempted not to smile. She failed. Kung said goodnight and stepped outside. Lynn followed him onto the porch. Moonlight stretched across the quiet estate. "You don't have to walk me out," he said. "I know." Neither moved. "Thank you," Lynn said. "I didn't realize how badly I needed tonight." "You looked happy." "I was." Kung's gaze remained on hers. "So was I." Lynn folded her arms loosely. "Would you like to do it again?" His attention sharpened. "Are you asking me?" "I believe I am." "Then yes." His answer came without hesitation. "I would like that very much." "Good. Good," he repeated. Kung stepped backward. "Good night, Lynn." "Good night, Kung." He turned toward the path. "Kung." He looked back. Lynn crossed the distance between them. This time, she did not kiss his cheek. She placed one hand against his chest and kissed him, softly. A first kiss that asked nothing beyond the moment. Kung remained still for a fraction of a second. Then one hand settled gently at her waist. He kissed her back with the same quiet care he had shown from the beginning. No urgency, no claim, only tenderness. When they separated, their foreheads rested together. "You really do wait for permission," Lynn whispered. "With you." "Why?" "Because you have spent too much of your life having choices taken from you." Emotion filled her eyes. Kung brushed his thumb gently beneath one of them. "You are allowed to choose what happens next." Lynn looked up at him. "Then I choose another dinner." His dimple appeared. "And more music?" "Yes." "Anything else?" She smiled. "We'll see." He stepped away slowly. Halfway across the lawn, he turned. Lynn was still watching. He lifted one hand. She waved back. Tasha waited inside with both arms crossed. Lynn closed the door. Not one word. Tasha pressed her lips together. Lynn removed her earrings and started toward the stairs. "He kissed you." Lynn stopped. "I kissed him." Tasha's mouth fell open. "You kissed him?" "Good night." "Lynn Smith." Lynn laughed and continued upstairs. "Was it good?" "Tasha." "That is a reasonable question." Lynn turned at the landing. Her friend stood below, smiling. Lynn tried to appear composed. She failed. "Yes." Tasha clapped once. "Quiet. You'll wake the children." "I knew it." "You knew nothing." "I knew everything." Still smiling, Lynn entered her bedroom. All three children had migrated into it. Michaela slept in the bed. Will occupied the small sofa near the window. David lay sideways across the foot of the mattress. Lynn stood in the doorway, looking at the three people who had needed nearly every part of her for years. She had never resented it. But tonight reminded her that motherhood had not erased the woman she had been before it. She was still there. Lynn changed into pajamas and climbed carefully into bed. Michaela stirred. "Did you have fun?" "Yes." "Did you bring dessert?" "It's downstairs." Michaela smiled without opening her eyes. "Good." Within seconds, she was asleep again. Lynn lay back against the pillow. The legal battles were not finished. Her father still had healing to do. Her children would carry memories that love could soften, but never completely erase. Life had not suddenly become simple. But peace did not require every problem to disappear. Sometimes peace was children sleeping nearby, a friend downstairs who loved her enough to interfere, music remembered by a man who listened, and one evening in which Lynn Smith had not merely survived. She had laughed. She had held a man's hand in the dark. She had kissed him because she wanted to. Tonight, she allowed herself to be happy. And for the first time in a long time, happiness did not frighten her at all.